Hey guys, and welcome again to RGT. This time I'm going to be examining what makes a good villain for a video game. Now obviously everything that I'm going to be discussing here will apply fairly well to films, books and all that good stuff, but still it is still a really big topic, and it's something I've been wanting to cover for quite some time. Right, this is going to be factors I feel could really just completely ruin your villain as a character. I think it comes down to four main factors which can break down a little bit, so let's have a look at those. The first one is understandable motivations. Are their motivations realistic? Are they relatable? Do they even make sense within the context of your story? And the next one is humanity. Are they pure evil, or do they have some human characteristics? Weaknesses, completely invulnerable. How powerful are they? How much of a task is it to even touch them? Are they immortal? Are they just a complete godlike character? And the very last one is demeanor. How do they behave? How do they treat their allies? How do they act towards their enemies? Just the general behaviour and personality. These are the four main things I feel are key to any villain. Obviously, I could literally just talk for hours about this subject, but I've tried to boil it down to the key aspects, and that's what I feel these are. I feel one of the more important facts for a character are relatability and humanity. One of the main turn-offs for me as a viewer is when a villain is just pure evil with no relatable human motivations for their actions. As in, they're literally just evil just for the lols. I'm sure you've all seen many examples of this, and to me it just leaves a villain feeling flat and uninspired, and often leaves you feeling a bit amused by their character rather than seeing them as any real threat or as someone to dislike. The emotion of dislike or hatred or whatever you want to call it is actually quite a strong one, and you can't feel a strong emotion about a character that does not seem like a real human being. And real human beings are not pure evil through and through. They can be pretty damn evil, don't get me wrong, but there is always some human element, usually. Obviously there are exceptions to this rule, as with everything, but when you're dealing with characters in a video game or film or whatever, you want to have some humanity, because if they don't have some human characteristics, how on earth is the viewer supposed to, or the player rather, supposed to relate to them? Because you are human, you have your own motivations, and if someone is literally just evil for the sake of it, then how are they supposed to be a good villain? I feel it's much more effective to give a villain some human qualities and some relatable motivations. You want this for the same reasons that you want to have the same for your hero. If the viewer can more properly relate and understand their villain, that villain will feel that much more real, and on the same hand, more threatening. Generic cut and paste pure evil villains are a trap that many games and films have fallen into, and obviously books as well. This is a theme that I see a lot in just villains that are just cardboard cutouts, generic, no thought put into them at all. They're literally just there for the sake of the story, so that the film or whatever, or the game can exist. It's a really dangerous trap for so many things to fall into. It's far too easy to literally just make your villain so generic and unoriginal that there's just nothing relatable about them. You want your hero to be relatable for obvious reasons, because they're the character that the player or viewer is supposed to be playing through, understanding them and liking them. Now obviously your villain doesn't necessarily need to be likeable, but they do need to be relatable for the reasons that I've already discussed. The emotion of dislike is a strong one, as strong as liking someone, and you're not going to dislike someone who just seems like they're not a real person. The best villains are the ones that have some human characteristics, some relatable and realistic motivations for what it is that they're doing. I also feel that how powerful your villain is a key to making them memorable and believable. I'm going to use an example from an anime here because it is the best one that I can think of. It's the main bad guy from Bleach, and it's a perfect example of a villain that is far too powerful to be relatable. Now I will avoid spoilers for Bleach as much as possible, but if you're worried about getting anything spoiled for you, like say the end of the Soul Society arc, then please stop listening for the next couple of minutes, okay? Anyway, When the main bad guy, who is of course Eisen, returns for the final showdown, he's literally untouchable. He has not only mastered all 4 arts available to Shinigami, he is made to almost godlike in power by an object within the story. So many characters have to team up to even touch him, and the fact that he's literally god level completely ruins any relatability he might have otherwise had. I don't personally find Eisen that good of a villain. Don't get me wrong, he's cool and everything. I really like the powers that he has, his Shikai and all that good stuff. I like the fact that the reason he's powerful is understandable. It's not just because, like with Ichigo, why he's so powerful. With him it's just because. With Eisen it's literally because he's trained to the point where he's mastered all 4 Shinigami arts. That is not what I have a problem with. It's his character. He doesn't seem to me to have any real well-explained, relatable motivations for what he's doing other than the lust for power, which is all well and good, but that just leaves him feeling flat and uninspired to me. And this godlike level of power does not help. He's literally almost without weakness, and it takes the main character and a load of other people to take him down. So that is not realistic or relatable. You want your villain to be a challenge, yes, because otherwise it's going to be a letdown when the final showdown happens. You know, you don't want it to be the case that, oh, you finally face the final villain and he's a pushover. No, of course not. You don't want that. But there is a balance there, and I feel that Eisen completely misses it and goes way too far. And in a way, it's the fault of all the other characters being so powerful. He kind of has to be that powerful to be a challenge, but even in the realms of the story of Bleach, it's still too much in my opinion. There's a ton of really powerful characters, like of course Ichigo, but that doesn't mean that the main villain has to literally be this god. He's so ridiculously untouchable, it just makes him such a flat and lifeless villain to me personally. How am I supposed to relate to him? How am I supposed to understand him when he literally doesn't even seem human at all? Let alone the fact that he doesn't really have any motivations for what he's doing. That doesn't help, but neither does the godlike level of power. There are so many factors in making a relatable villain, and of course some of these will change based on the context of your story. However, everything that I've mentioned in this particular video is still key to making your villain relatable and real to the player. Any villain, or antagonist if you prefer that term, is so vital to any story, regardless of how it's given to the viewer. It's a film, book, game, whatever, it doesn't matter. They are so still key, and they are one thing you absolutely want to get right. How many stories have you seen ruined by an unoriginal villain? A villain who's literally just slapped on so the character has someone to fight against. I've seen this so many times in so many different formats, and I just feel that these are the main traps that they fall into. Everything else that I discussed at the beginning, like weaknesses and demeanor, all of that good stuff, all of these are key too. Such as demeanor, you often see villains just treating their allies like crap, completely disregarding them, killing them, and, you know, instilling fear. That's fine. It's perfectly fine to have allies who are following someone because they're afraid of them. That's perfectly understandable. That's a fine motivation. However, there is such a thing as going too far with it. Because if it's literally the case of where they're just treating all of these allies like complete crap, killing them, threatening them, beating them, you know, it's going to get to the point where there's more allies than there is of the villain. So why don't they just all band together and fight against him? Because he's treating them just as badly as he treats everyone else. So what reason, good reason, relatable human reason, do they have to keep following him? So like I said at the beginning, I could literally talk for hours about this subject, but I just feel like these are the key factors into making a good villain. I mean, one of my favourite villains is Randall Flagg, who is from Stephen King's books. Anyone who's a fan of him will immediately know what I mean. Now he is actually a pretty good example of a good villain because he is powerful and he is pretty evil, but he still seems human in some ways, and he's not completely untouchable. He does have weaknesses. He is more powerful than your average human. He's basically a he's like a, not quite immortal, but he's lived for a long time. He's like maybe 1,000 years old, and he's, you know, got all these powers and stuff, but they still seem small. They don't seem like this godlike level of power. He is powerful than your more average human being, but he's not Eisen level of ridiculousness. Not even close to being Eisen level of ridiculousness. Flagg's main power, if you want to use that word, as a villain, is his power to manipulate people. And that is one of the main things that makes him a good villain. And the fact that, although he does seem like he doesn't have much of his humanity left anymore, because he did start out as a human being, there is still some there, and you do see some inklings of it, and the fact that he does show fear, and you see him even run away from battle when he sees that he's going to lose. He's not this cardboard cutout villain that you see a lot. I mean, go look him up if you haven't read the books. He's one of my favourite villains, and read the book The Stand by Stephen King, because not only is it a very, very good book, it's the perfect example of what I'm talking about with Flagg's character. That is the best book with Flagg in it, in my opinion, or you've got The Eyes of the Dragon. But still, the points I've made here still stand, and I feel like these things are key to making a good villain. Anyway guys, I feel like I've rambled far too much about this. I'm probably going to be writing a full-blown massive article about this particular subject on redgamingtech.com. So please feel free to check that out. I'll obviously be working on that for a while, but you know, we post news and all that good stuff every day on our site, so please feel free to check it out. I'm going to basically be expanding on everything that I've discussed here to a excruciating degree, because like I said, this is something I feel like I could talk for ages about, so I'm going to be writing an article on it, so please feel free to check out our site. I've said the link already, redgamingtech.com, and it will of course be in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to hit me with any comments based on anything that I've discussed here. I'm always want to hear from you guys. You know, I want to hear your opinions on everything that I've said, whether you agree, disagree or what. I want to hear from you. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again soon.